Welcome to the SVG-TV Evening News for today, Friday, April 16th. I'm Khalil Cato with the details. Lead scientist monitoring the La Soufriere volcano, Professor Richard Robertson, said that the explosive eruption which occurred today around 6:15 a.m. has proven his prediction wrong of it being past its explosive phase. In his daily updates on the volcanic eruption on NBC Radio this morning, Professor Robertson said that the period between the explosions has now changed pattern from 17 hours to 41 hours.
To a large extent, based on what we saw, that it looked like we had been out of the period of having explosions. But of course, Soufriere don't like to be told what it's doing, so it proved me completely wrong. So this morning at about 16 minutes past 6, after 40, I think it's over 41 hours of doing essentially nothing. Well, not so much doing nothing. It was producing all these earthquakes, these hybrids, these long period earthquakes, which you remember the pattern was before you had about 13 to 15 hours of these, and then you had something. Well, it didn't have anything for like 41 hours. So therefore, we kind of concluded that it looked like we're out of the period of explosions. And then this morning it's had one. It wasn't a sort of a big explosion compared to the ones that we had last weekend, but it was big enough to punch a hole through into the clouds and put an eruption plume that we estimate from here probably at its highest probably got up to about 7,000 or 8,000 meters. A lot of the ash at the top level, there was a little bit of ash at the top level drifting towards the east, but most of it to us from here looks like it was drifting towards the west, offshore.
Though today's explosive eruption was smaller than the others from the past week, Professor Robertson said that these explosive eruptions can go on for months. He, however, noted that they would not be a great threat to the entire country, but for the communities in the red zone.
I'm not sure if people along the west coast might see that haze in the distance. I'm not sure if it might blow in, but it looked like it was going mainly to the west in terms of the amount of ash that came out. It wasn't a lot. It was not sort of a big eruption column, and it didn't seem, the signal that we have is not a long signal. The height of the signal, the amplitude, size of it is probably comparable to some we have had, some of the volcanic explosions we had within sort of the last couple, sort of earlier on this week, certainly on the 13th we had one. It looks like it's smaller in magnitude than the one we had on the 13th that commemorated the 13th April event. But yes, we did have an explosive event, and it tells us that we're not quite out of the explosions, that, as we said, it looks like the period between the explosions have lengthened. It's now lengthened to over 41 hours, which is a bit more than two and a half days, kind of. So it looks like you might still have these events going on. Fortunately, they're not very big. Fortunately, they're not, and therefore not producing a lot of ash. So hopefully they shouldn't disrupt anything other than the northern parts of the island where the volcano is and where people should move from.
Dr. Robertson encouraged persons to stay away from the red zone as the volcano can be very unpredictable.
Secondly, the amount of energy that this volcano had at the beginning suggests to us that it has a lot more down there to come out. Thirdly, if you look at the amount of new material that has come out, I think we estimate, just back of the envelope sort of general estimates, the new material that has come out. I'm not talking about the 79 dome, which it got rid of, which was there before, or the effusive part of the eruption, the new dome that came out. I'm talking about truly new material that was in new magma, fresh. We estimate it's a small amount. It's only about 20 million cubic meters, if any, that has come out as fresh material. Now, if you look at past eruptions of Soufriere in 79 put out upwards of 60 million cubic meters of material. In 71, it put out something around that amount, 60 million. So past eruptions, which started less vigorous, have produced new material that was much more. So to think that now, when we have only had a small amount of new material put out, that is finished, would be, I think we'll be totally wrong. So we have a little time yet. I mean, I know people would love it. I would love it to finish.
Prime Minister Dr. Ralph Gonsalves says that lately there has been a lot of fake news which has been misinforming persons on social media on the La Soufriere eruption. On radio this morning, the Prime Minister asked persons to refrain from sharing what he called fake news, which he said will be problematic in the maintenance of ongoing social solidarity.
It used to be said that someone who does not read a newspaper is uninformed. But if the person reads a newspaper, he or she is misinformed. Now, what we are having with the explosion on the various platforms on the internet is not just misinformation, but a lot of fake information, deliberately contrived lies, and fake news. I want to ask our people to listen to the authoritative sources. A release comes out, read it carefully. Public officials make statements, just be careful in how you're interpreting what is being said. Don't, for the sake of circulation of likes or whatever, give it some spin. All you're doing is that you're making it more problematic in the maintenance of an ongoing social solidarity.
Prime Minister Gonzalez said SVG requires resources and technical support for the humanitarian effort on the ground and for the recovery and reconstruction of social solidarity. He said if such support is eroded, there will be significant challenges ahead.
Coming to us from the region and outside, and from our own resources too, of vital importance currently and in our rebuilding and to build back stronger is something which is called social solidarity. We must be in solidarity with one another. If this solidarity is frayed, F-R-A-Y-E-D, or shattered or broken or dissolved in any significant way, it is going to make the issue of the current humanitarian relief very problematic, and we are not going to be able to recover and rehabilitate and reconstruct in the most optimal fashion.
The Prime Minister further encouraged persons to be disciplined and calm at this time, noting that the country will have to be prepared for more disasters.
Just be orderly, just be disciplined, just be calm. I'm just asking that. We are going to be in a difficult period, and we are indeed in a difficult and challenging period. And in 6 weeks' time, we're going to have the start of the hurricane season. So there are multiple challenges coming on all fronts for which we have got to have preparation for. I want to say something which means that we have to be our brothers and sisters' keeper. We have to be disciplined. We have to have good neighborly love. The dissension, we have to cut it out. The misrepresentations, we have to cut it out. We have to get rid of the vanity of small differences.
And Director of the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, Michelle Forbes, said that the organization is currently facing challenges where evacuees have rented guest houses and other houses and are demanding that NEMO or the government pay the rent. Noting that this is not part of what they are required to do, Forbes said the policy clearly states that there are government-designated shelters to be used to house evacuees. However, persons who are sick, elderly, or pregnant women could take up occupancy in guest houses or hotels assigned by the government.
Yes, we actually have that challenge. Additionally, there are persons who would have actually signed into a guest house, and of course they only paid for a couple of days, and then they're asked to continue to stay in the guest houses. That is one of the challenges that we have.
But that's not part of the policy.
No, that's not part of the policy.
The policy conditions are really related to your physical situation, your health situation, your age, disabilities, Like, talk about the pregnant women, late stage, some with very, very small children. But it doesn't go towards your quote-unquote employment status, that if you're a teacher or you're a public servant or you're something, that somehow you're too good to go into a shelter and therefore government must pay for you to go inside of a hotel or a guest house.
The NEMO director said that they are currently working on having an additional space for an emergency center where there will be increased lines where they can contact persons who have been displaced as a result of the eruption.
Where we actually have a hotline team, a telephone team just working on reaching persons who would have either been displaced from this particular eruption.
And we have good persons to operate those lines, people with patience and apply their heart to wisdom. Okay.
Yes, and mainly civil servants who have been volunteering to the office of the chief personal officer.
Very good.
We are using a lot of civil servants who volunteer.
Very good.
Our main activities will be still the distribution of food packages and a lot of the relief items that are coming in, because we don't want the ports to be blocked up, because we have quite a bit coming in.
Yes.
So we are heavily concentrating on clearing those things and getting them from the port so they can be packaged or directly to the communities.
Minister of Education Curtis King said that there is no need for students here in SVG to be overly anxious at this time because the ministry is in discussions with the Caribbean Examinations Council to determine how best to deal with the 2021 exams. His comments come in light of concerns expressed by some stakeholders in relation to the students who have signed up for regional exams. Minister King noted that whatever decision is arrived at, it will be based on the present situation facing SVG.
Whatever decision is arrived at will be informed by the present situation here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And when I speak to the present situation, I'm really talking about the challenges that we face from one, the explosive eruption of the La Soufrière volcano, the challenges that we face from the continuing experience of the COVID-19 pandemic, and of course the threat of the spread of the dengue fever. All these are challenges that we face presently, so that whatever decision is arrived at with the CXC would naturally be informed by these challenges that we have and are experiencing.
He added that the CXC is concerned about the situation in SVG, noting that the chairman of the council and others have already reached out, expressing solidarity with the people and government of St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
In fact, CXC has been rather and quite understandably very appreciative of the situation that we face here in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. In fact, Sir Hilary Beckles, the chairman of the council, and the registrar, Dr. Wesley, they have both extended solidarity with the government and people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and they have also expressed their understanding of the challenges facing our students and other stakeholders in education.
The Education Minister said this week his permanent secretary represented the Ministry of Education in a virtual meeting with the Caribbean Examinations Council, and they await their decision.
The messages and solidarity and understanding of our appreciation of our situation was communicated in a virtual meeting that was held earlier this week of the council, which comprise at that level of the chairman, the registrar, and other senior members of staff, as well as representatives from the various member countries. St. Vincent and the Grenadines was represented at that meeting by our permanent secretary, Mr. Michael Burke, as well as the president of the Secondary Schools Principals Association, Mr. Curtis Graves.
With aggressive contact tracing for the 3 positive COVID-19 cases tested in shelters, Chief Medical Officer Dr. Simone Kieser-Beach said so far they have had only negative results for all of the contacts. She made this known on NBC Radio today during the daily update on the volcanic eruption.
Okay, so this morning we recorded 1 new case last night of 62, so 1.6% positivity rate. In terms of following through with the contact tracing of those 3 cases in the shelters yesterday, so far we have had negative tests for all of the contacts. We also did some massive testing at NEMO yesterday at the NEOC, and all of those persons were negative. We are continuing to do our testing. We are expanding the testing in the shelters, and the testing strategy is now going to be about 15% every 5 days. In terms of the primary health care system in the shelters, the CMO said this will be integrated in shelters in each district. She also noted that there will be more doctor clinics in each district to allow persons in shelters to have increased access to health care. To allow for the persons in shelters, whether it's the public shelters or the private homes, to have increased access to health care. We're also going into the shelters, and we're now looking, besides looking at the communicable diseases like, the gastro or fever, cough and cold, COVID, we are also looking at the nutritional aspect, and also for our persons with diabetes and hypertension. So we're going to have our nutrition officers, our community nutrition officers, working along with our nurses and doctors and the shelter teams to ensure that we have adequate nutrition and that we are maintaining healthy diets as possible.
Dr. Kieser-Beach said that measures have also been taken to ensure diabetics, hypertensive, and persons with different conditions have their appropriate nutritious meals and regular checkups to stay as healthy as possible.
So the original national disaster plan, we had included our advice from our nutrition unit in terms of the diets that should be used in the shelters. Just as in hospitals, we normally offer snacks. I know some of the shelters, they were offering snacks. So we're going to ensure that we provide the advice to allow for appropriate snacks to be available for those diabetics. So as you said, we would identify the diabetics, hypertensive, those who have kidney problems, all of these are the special requirement diets. So we have community nutrition officers, and they will be added to the health teams to ensure that persons are adequately taken care of with their special needs, to make sure those snacks are available.
A family of 18 from the Sandy Bay area is in a private shelter after they fled their home days after the eruptions of the La Soufrière volcano. While some were adamant that they were not moving out of their community, which is in the danger or red zone, they say they had no choice but to flee to safety.
I mean, me say me not run, look how bad it get, me not run. But when me morning, my lady and my children, they bust out it Thursday. By Friday morning, when me get up, I tell them guys, me say, well, all of they gone, they will soon come back. I go see them run, come back. Next thing me go inside, when me come out back, me and my brother say, come and see something, watch up there. Me say, baby, he said, suffer blood. Me say, I getting together. Next thing me leave and going back, when me look, stone a fall from the sky. Very stone a fall. Well, we say, okay, let me go. We have to run. Neighbor say, wait for me, we can't wait. We just have to run.
If we call the river real bad, and we have to climb up stone and thing. And when we get up in there, it's kind of frightened. And when we go on the vehicle, we have to take shovel and shovel off the thing here and this guy. Shovel off rail sand about 8 inches high, you know. Yeah, and then when we go around in the back, you can't even walk when you watch the whole place. High with rail sand. So we just say, well, we'll try to get out of here before things start to happen.
Friday night, we're being and do some concrete roof. I ran out of there and go up on the next concrete roof was better. And when I did, I still have moved from there again. But one time when I come in, making the first trip, I saw a light cut in front of me, red. I used to say it was fire, but it was not fire, it was thunder.
They say their experience in the private shelter is nowhere close to home due to a lack of basic amenities. They have since tried to solicit help from the relevant authorities.
Write down something. When she done write down a thing, he tell me, by gate. Me go by gate, me tell him, me say me want some water. He tell me, no water no there. Me say, how you go say no water no there? Me hear tell somebody go downstairs. He say, go and go check. When me go, the guy tell me, if you want water, you have to get a delivery note. Me say, delivery note, we don't have no water at all and want water already. You know, it kind of, you know, this kind of confusing.
And we don't know how long that this thing will continue. And you see, 8 days going in, and we ain't get nothing, we are not looking forward for anything again. You know, because if you would come and bring 1 pound of flour, 1 pound of sugar, 1 pound is for 18 people. My God, what is that? Totally disrespect.
I'm like a man say, boy, you're going to run up from the surfer and go and meet a better one? Jesus Christ, man. Everything you ask these people from. The guy, the people around there with them. The camp around there. Then me want you walk from here. Go around there for peace at some chapati this morning. Lunchtime you have to walk around the lunchtime again. Again? This evening now you have to walk with a chapati by time reach. Coming home back your belly empty.
Several grassroots organizations and volunteers have taken on the challenge of assisting the National Emergency Management Organization, NEMO, to fill the gaps with the needs of displaced evacuees in various shelters. Our news team spoke with some individuals who are at the forefront of the volunteer efforts on the ground here. Here's more in this report.
Since the eruption of the La Soufrière volcano exactly 1 week ago today, Friday, April 16, 2021, Vincentians here and abroad have leapt into action to provide for the evacuees from the devastated northern communities on the island. We spoke with local streetwear designer Karen De Freitas, who is also an organizer of the Justice League grassroots movement, a team of young Vincentian volunteers whom she says began by using their personal funds to purchase supplies for persons in the shelters. De Freitas says other persons followed suit to donate and volunteer their time to help with the relief efforts.
Since the eruption started, we started forming a database by simply going around to the shelters, speaking with the managers, asking them how much evacuees they have, what were their needs immediately. At the start, we're buying stuff out of our own money and supplying like firsthand. And since then, we've been daily calling them, asking them, you know, what their needs are, etc., and updating our database. We have a database that's available to everyone. This is purely voluntary. Sometimes we work from like 8 in the morning till 11 at night. Every day we wake up, we have different needs and different assessments, I guess. So the needs keep changing because a lot more people are coming down from the north. I think we spend close to, between all of us, let's say like $4,000 a day, roughly. That's easy.
One young volunteer with the Justice League, John Noel, spoke of his interaction with evacuees and the moments that make their efforts worthwhile.
Just seeing how grateful the people are, you know, when they receive supplies, I guess that's what motivates us and keeps us going. And that's sort of the silver lining in all of this, that we have to take and just, you know, keep moving forward, keep doing the work because these people need it. We are a resilient people. They're in those shelters. You know, the conditions are less than ideal, to say the least, but these people's spirits are high, and that's what keeps my spirits high and keeps giving me hope, you know, that if they can be in those conditions and have that type of spirit, that type of resilience, then who am I to feel down and distressed and hopeless? So I draw my strength from those in the shelters. Another
volunteer group formed by the Oxygen Mass Tent has been gathering donations to supply to the various shelters. We spoke with a young volunteer with that group, Nyasha Mofford, who shared how the donations and distributions have been going, as well as her personal efforts to assist the children in the shelters.
Based on the needs of the person in the different shelters, we would then distribute accordingly. These are puzzles for the adults or, you know, the older children, pictures for them to color. So I made like coloring pads. And this is a Connect 4 activity that I found online that I just laminated so that the kids could use them, reuse them. And then good old snake and ladder that everybody can play.
eHub SVG has also been making their mark in the relief efforts. Their operator, Najma McKenzie, shared how the platform has enabled helpless relatives abroad to provide for their loved ones. She also spoke of the joy evacuees express when receiving their packages, as many are sometimes unable to readily access money transfer services.
Given the circumstances, we're just honored to be able to assist in this way, where we're able to be that link for persons in the diaspora who feel helpless, basically everything that's happening at home. So they're able to simply purchase a package online and we deliver it directly to the person that they want. So not necessarily only to a shelter, and to persons who were displaced from their homes and at other homes or hotels.
Without being asked and without being compensated, many Vincentians are volunteering their time and their resources for as long as it will take to return to some form of normalcy. Reporting for SVGTV News, I am Shafsha Speedwell Callum.
No crops were spared in the North Windward area from the wrath of the eruption of the La Soufrière volcano, and while some animals made it, a few didn't. This was noted on a tour conducted today by Minister of Agriculture Saboto Caesar to assess the damage caused by the eruption to agriculture on the windward side of the island. The touring team, which included journalists, could only get as far as Sandy Bay, as the damage to the London River made the road impassable. Minister Caesar and other agriculture officers on the tour were appalled by the level of destruction.
Right now, what we're witnessing is almost a total loss at a field like this, and farmers definitely would have to start over from zero. So we are seeing the significant damage done to the banana industry. This is definitely a lot of ash within the fingers of this bunch, and with the impact on the leaves would definitely impact on photosynthesis and the ability for it to continue.
Minister Caesar committed to helping all farmers affected by the volcanic eruption. The Agriculture Minister also visited the Rabica Livestock Station, where some animals were rescued.
But we could not move all of the stock in time. So what we are doing on a day-to-day basis is that we are bringing water, and we're also bringing feed to the animals that are owned by the government, and we're also assisting persons in the private sector, assisting them with feed and water. If you notice here, the animals, even though they do not have any natural feed growing, they are still...
At the Orange Hill Biotechnology Center, it was total destruction.
When we understand the volcano was acting up, we started to produce some tissueculture material that we could keep in case we have to restart after the event, right? So we have some of that material. Even some of our cocoa, where you see where the facility was totally destroyed, we took some of that into tissue culture material so we can restart, because we had them labeled, we know what is what.
A number of dead animals were observed on the main road, and in Sandy Bay, some persons returned and started the cleanup process. On today's visit, 300 pounds of pumpkins were donated to be distributed to shelters. The Agriculture Minister said farmers in the red zone will also benefit from other donations.
I want to encourage several farmers in the area who may have produce, that we want to ensure that we supply these shelters from time to time. So if you have produce, you could actually bring the produce to the shelter and speak to the shelter manager.
And a number of farmers flocked to the building housing the Ministry of Agriculture today, seeking animal feed. They were told that pig farmers will initially benefit due to its availability, and later farmers who rear sheep and goats will benefit. Chief Veterinarian with the Ministry of Agriculture, Kathy Ann Hackshaw, said that farmers have to be careful of the grass given to their animals at this time due to the volcanic ash.
That even though they're giving this type of feed, this is commercial feed, we only going to be complementing this feed with grass. So we would not be giving a lot of feed to the sheep and goats, because they will come down with different problems. So we're asking you to be very careful when you're feeding that you don't feed a whole quantity. We would advise you in terms of the amount to feed small ruminants and cattle. But the pigs, we can give them as much as possible because they can eat this food without any problem. And we're also advising that you continue to wash the grass as much as possible and feed to the animals. We also advise that you give them deworming and also some molasses.
Minister of Agriculture Soboto Caesar said $10,000 worth of animal feed from the Inter-American Institute for Cooperation on Agriculture, ICA, was received, and another shipment of feed is expected sometime next week. He added that farmers who did not receive from this first distribution should be patient.
6 different depots around the country established, and farmers this morning, some persons will be receiving feed, some persons will not be receiving feed, because when we made the second order of $100,000, which will be financed by the central government, when we made that second order to the feed mills, they noted that they will need a few more days to get that order together. We have a request from several persons locally to supply them with animal product, and we are working to ensure that the different centers have beef available and fish.
Michael Dalton of ICA said they are committed to continue their support to the farmers in SVG.
We pride ourselves on being able to make this intervention here today and to supply to the Ministry of Agriculture 1,200 plus sacks of feed for distribution to farmers. We recognize immediately the urgency of the situation and the need for a quick response. And we wanted to make this initial donation to support the efforts of the ministry to support the livestock sector.
With the devastation caused to their crops under the newly developing medicinal cannabis industry, the local Cannabis Revival Committee, CRC, is appealing for support from international partners and the SVG government for farmers. In a news release, the CRC president, Junior Spirit Cottle, said special attention is needed as many of the traditional cultivators have lost all that they have grown and their homes have been devastated by the volcanic eruption, and as such, they are unable to now feed their families. He said it is important that the small traditional cannabis cultivators get this special assistance, as they are currently striving to develop an inclusive medical cannabis industry that will facilitate the rebuilding of St. Vincent and the Grenadines after the pandemic and the volcanic eruption. He said the small traditional cannabis cultivators are fearful that they may not be given equal attention in the rebuilding process, and the CRC and the Caribbean Fair Trade Working Group are calling attention to the plight of the traditional cannabis cultivators of the island as the country faces the double edges of the COVID-19 pandemic and now the violent eruption of the La Soufrière volcano. 26 Guyanese here in SVG have requested to be home following the eruption of La Soufrière. So says Consul General of SVG to Guyana, Nigel Russell, who told SVG-TV News that the numbers could increase or decrease, but arrangements are being made for them to return home.
Guyana right now, as we speak also, they are making arrangements with some appropriate vessel. And they must understand this has just happened here. You don't expect the government in 48 hours to get a boat. They've got to make those arrangements. Those arrangements are being made right now every day. From the time we got this information about Monday, the numbers are going up. No timeline we're working with. All we're doing now is compiling the names of those lists. On that list that I have so far is like 10 children between the ages of 4 to 11. That's much I can tell you. And we expect the list is going to go high. It might just go low because we don't know, because some are uncertain, some are definitely certain that they will want to go. And has requested that I get as much information for them because this is not an open and shut case.
Russell said 3 vessels from Guyana will be coming to St. Vincent with relief supplies. The first vessel is expected here tomorrow morning.
That's the boat that is coming now, bringing other stuff, but people were encouraged there for their families in Guyana to put the things on board that boat there. So that is well on. In fact, just as we spoke before this, just a little while ago, they were loading that vessel. So people were taking other boxes and packages for their families. That's a fact. When that gets here, you guys will certainly know. So we have the first vessel is coming. It's bringing stuff directly from Nemo for St. Vincent directly, and I have 2 crates there this afternoon. Well, 2 crates of things that I had personally asked for on that vessel also. So we'll be taking that out when we get it maybe Friday, Saturday, and the very first thing we'll be doing is doing our inventory, which Guyana's asked for us to do. We do our inventory, and then we will begin our process of how she gets around.
Meanwhile, the Guyanese Association in SVG is mobilizing resources to support the relief efforts here.